Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, Masechtas Bava Kama Daf Sadi Gimel. We're going to begin on Sadi Gimel, Amud Aleph, 5 lines from the top. So we were learning in yesterday's daf a lot of Agadata, which discussed that there are numerous expressions that people make, and they're based on sources in the Torah. On this, Omer Rab Chanan, Hamoser Din al Chavero, any person who wishes that other person should be judged, hu nenesh tchila, he'll be punished first. So it's very interesting. Just like if you have something wrong with you, but if you look favorably to pray for someone, as we saw in yesterday's daf, you'll be answered first. So too, if you project negativity on a person, that they should be judged, you're going to be judged. Shnemer b'taimer Sarai el Avram, Sarai said to Avram, Chamasi alecha, my anger's upon you. And then it says that Abraham mourned the loss of his wife. So as Sarai was upset and saying that you should be judged for what you've done, so then all of a sudden, tragically, she's judged. This is in a situation where there is some type of judgment, so to speak, in the land. So in that situation, that is when a person is judged. Says Rashi on the top, there was a beis din of shame that was around. In other words, if you're Moiser Din al Chavero, the way that I understand it is that you yourself projected. So then that's your mistake. Because if in fact there is some type of a court that could rectify the situation, then that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go to a beis din. But if you're Moiser Din al Chavero, namely you just cast judgment upon on someone, that is where the issue lies. Amar Rav Yitzchak. More woe is the screamer more than the one who's being screamed at. So again, the notion is that if you're the one that's screaming, you're the one that's getting all the attention. But it could be very negative attention. It shows that you've lost control. So even though you yourself may have a good point that other person you're screaming at did something wrong, but people aren't going to focus on that person who did something wrong. They're going to look at you, the person who's in no control over themselves. And therefore, again, if you're someone that screams that this person did something wrong, this person deserves retribution or whatnot, so then you're the one who'll be judged. It could really imply the scream of the one being screamed at. However, even though they're both guilty parties, the one who's the screamer, who in himself seems like they are really an innocent party, nonetheless they're judged first. So look at Rashi in the top. So this pasuk is really implying both parties, but nonetheless the one who does the screaming, the initiating, that's the person who will be judged first. You should never consider a curse of even a simple person. That should not be something which is light in your eyes. Because we know that Abimelech cursed Sarah, and it turned out that her children ended up absorbing this man's curse. Shnemar, as the pasuk says, you shall have a covering of your eyes, which basically is saying some element of being blind. And Omerlei hoyel v'kesis mimeni v'galis shuishech, since it was hidden from me, and you did not reveal that. In fact, when I took her, I thought she wasn't your wife. V'garamt olai hatsar hazen, you caused so much pain and suffering, as we saw in the previous dafim, not being able to have children, and also not being able to use the bathroom. He ratzoin. He's actually saying like he ratzoin. It says on the side, Shehilocha Ksuyei Seinayim, that or B'nei Ksuyei Nayim, right? It really isn't B'nei Ksuyei Nayim. The curse was on her herself. V'neskayim Bizarra, and it turned out that this is what happened to her children. D'chsiv, her child, V'hi Ki Zaken Yitzchak V'tachyen Einav Mirois, that Yitzchak became old and he was not able to see. So it's very interesting if you think about it. That what was Avimelech's taina? Said, I didn't recognize that who you really were. I didn't recognize your true identity. I thought you were a sibling to Avraham, but you were really his wife. So I was tricked by not knowing the true identity of this person, which is exactly what happened with Yitzchak. Yitzchak, who was blind, did not know who he was in front of, whether it was his son Esav or Yaakov. Adam min ha-nirdofin v'lo min ha-roidfin. You should always be among those being chased, and not among those who are doing the chasing. She'enocha nirdof ba'ofos yosim etoidim, because there's no birds that are pursued more than toirim uvnei yoina, doves and turtle doves. And those are the ones that are kosher the mizbeach. So it's interesting. If you're the one that's being pursued, similar to this woman this person, let's say, who's screaming at you. So in that situation, so you're not the one that's even though again maybe you did something wrong, but you're not the one that's judged. It's the one who does the screaming. It's the person who is the doing the oppressing by screaming at you. That is the person who is judged. The other person is being attacked, and the person who's being attacked is someone we find more favor toward. And therefore, it's the same thing when it comes to these birds, that they are considered to be kosher on the mizbech. These are considered to be the most chashiv of birds, that they're placed on the mizbech, because we look almost like the underdog at the way that they're being mistreated by others. So therefore, because they're oppressed, if you will, so therefore all of a sudden they're kosher from the mizbech. They're considered to be of the highest of standards. Okay, ha'omer samias eini l'chul. So if a person was instructed, blind my eye, and amnas liftor, you're still going to be chayiv. So on this, the Gemara says, Amalei Rabbi Asi bar Chamel Rava, Maishna Mareisha Maishna Seva. So in the Reisha, it says you're always going to be chayiv. However, when it comes to the Seva, where you weren't instructing someone to cause physical injury, but as the Mishnah says, let me just find it, if a person says, let me find this Mishnah. It's on Sami Beis. Almanas lifter pot asi kain ish pliny almanas lifter chayiv bein begufa bein memoinai. So that's not what it's talking about. So again, let's read the whole Mishnah. So a person says, blind my eye, or harm me, you're always chayiv, even if he says almanas lifter, you're chayiv. Rip my garment, you're going to be chayiv. Almanas lifter, potter. In that situation, you're going to be potter. But you can't instruct someone to do it to someone else. You're always going to be chayiv. So on this, mashna reisha mashna seifma. So amalei reishal if yishin adam moichel al rashi avarim. You cannot be moichel on your rashi avarim. You can't say, "Oh, hurt me, don't worry about it." No, you're still going to be chayiv, and therefore you're going to be chayiv. And also, you can't cause tsar on another person either. Ramavachi adam moichel tsaro desanya hakeni pizzaeni almanas lifter potter. We learn that if someone says hit me, and he hits almanas lifter, that he should be potter. It says he actually is potter. So What do you mean? It sounds like you could be moichel. So ishtik. Oimer midi shmielach baha. Anyone know an answer to this? So there's a different element over here of why you're going to be chayiv because of pigam mishpacha. Look at Rashi. In the middle of Dira Maskal Pitzaini, Braisadol El de Tani Hakeni Pitzaini Almanas Lifter Potter. Why are you Potter? Is Bid Amar Nechbal Kula Milsa Hakeni Pitzaini Almanas Lifter. Tavadi Dafka Armale. In this case, he said the entire statement. It wasn't a back and forth conversation. So that's the idea. He didn't say do it, and then the guy says, Almanas Lifter. Oh yeah, you'll be Potter. Then in that case, that's different. However, if he would have said it in one full statement, you can hit me almanas liftor, then you will be potter. So that's the idea. Okay. He says that you're still chai because of pagam mishpacha. It's a different answer as we said before, because you can't be moichel al reish varim, even if it's possible that you can be somehow moich. There's no din pagam mishpacha, but nonetheless, it's still a chiyuv that takes place because you can't be moich reish varim. And Tosfos points out over here, Mishalem hakol afil tsar, even the tsar, which is not connected to pagam mishpacha, but apparently it is. So you have to pay for that too. Rav Yochanan yesh hein shehu b'lav v'yesh lav shu b'hein. Kahain. So there's sometimes no means yes, and sometimes yes means no. Depending on the tone of your voice, yes could be a no with sarcasm, as though to say, why do you think this is acceptable to hurt me? Are you kidding me? So can I hit you? Yeah, sure, yeah. Of course, yes means no. Sometimes yes means no, sometimes no means yes. Tanya Hachi, Hakeni Putsaeni Elmanas Lifner V'Yermelo Hain. When he says yes, sometimes yes really means no. It's like, yeah, sure, you can hit me. Of course not. Karis Kisuisi, rip my garments, almanas lifter, Yermel Lav goes, am I going to be potter? Nah. So Hari Lav, Shehu Kahain, because maybe in that situation he was his moichel on himself. And on this, Rashi says, the mochel inish amamoinit femagufe. Person would be more moichel on his possessions than on him being physically harmed. Question 9. Omrlo hakeni pitsueni o omrle karakasusi. So if he said one of these two things, v'shoyel halah, and the person asks almanas liftar, if I do these things, I hit you or I rip your clothes or break something of yours, will I be potter? Vermelo hain, he says yes. Him chai b'chavolaso o b'nizkoi. So he says like this. Im amrlo hain b'loshen tema chayiv. If he says yes as like a bewilderment, like yeah, or in sarcasm, then you're still going to be chayiv, because obviously he means no, you're not going to be potter. V'im amrlo hain b'nechusa potter. But if he said it in a way of like supporting what he said, then you'll be potter. Shibras kadi kares ksusi chayiv. Urminhi, the pasuk says lishmor. It says to guard, v'lo abed, not to destroy, or for it to get lost. Lishmor v'lo l'kroy, not to rip it up. Lishmor v'lo l'chalik laniyim, and not to divide, not to give it to the poor. So look at Rashi. Kiyitain lishmor tipikidasa tipikdiai etzloi lishmor. You gave an object for a person to watch. Chai b'pshia. So that person who is a guardsman is going to be chayiv if who's negligent in watching it, if he didn't watch it properly. Because again, his purpose was to watch it and not for it to get lost, not to give it to poor people, not for it to get ruined. So therefore, once you say to him, I want you to watch it, so therefore it's understood that he's going to be chayiv. So what do we see over here? It says v'lo l'chal klanim. So how could you tell me that there's a din of that one is chayiv, which is it says kares ksusi chayiv, from this pasuk you're going to be potter. So and that's how we understand it. So Rashi says derma chalkeu sulo demafkid ninhu mandik tava Va'aniyim lo matzim matve. You can't collect from the poor people. Chol chad v'chad matzi emer lo didachi avina el acharina. Amar Rav Huna lo kasha. Hadi asel yadi, hadi lo asel yadi. So if it was in your hands and you ripped it in your hands, then you're going to be chayiv. However, if you didn't say almanas lifter, okay. So Amalei Rabba Lishmor, it says to watch. The Asil Yadi Mashma. That sounds like it was in your hands. So how can you tell me that the pasuk where it says you're potter of Lishmor V'lo Abed, that you're going to be potter because it wasn't in your hands? If you're watching it, it's in your hands. El Omer Rabba Havaha Di Asil Yadi. Both of these objects were in the hands. Lo kasha. Hadi Asil Yadi B'taris Shmira, Hadi Asil Yadi B'taris Kriya. One came in the hands to watch it, and one came in b'tayris kriya to rend it. Who arnika the tzedakah the asal pumadisa. So there was this money belt, if you will, which was for tzedakah that was in pumadisa. Afkana Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef deposited it gabiyahu gavra by a certain individual to watch it. Pashaba, so the person who is watching this arniki of tzedakah is lost it, or something happened, some pshia. Also ganve, thieves came ganvua and they stole it. And the chayiv Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef is here to chayid. So the pasuk says that you're potter. The only time you're chayiv, the pasuk said, is only lishmor, if you're there to watch it, but not if your whole purpose is to be chalak laniyim, or as we said, if your job was you were told just to rip it up, or your job was to guard it, right? So that was the whole kasha. Hope I explained it clearly. That the question was originally, the Mishnah says that if someone gives it to you and says kares ksusi, you're chayiv, but it says the only time you're chayiv as a shomer is if you're a shomer, but not if you're intended to rip it. So we ended up saying that even though both cases yasal yadeh, but the pasuk of lishmor v'ula kroa, since it came into your hands b'taris kriya, so therefore that's why you're going to be potter. You're only chayiv if you're told to watch it. So too it says lishmor v'ula chal chaniyim. The only time you're chayiv if a pshia happens is if you are a shomer, but not if you were supposed to hold on to money eventually for a poor to be able to get it. So how could Rav Yosef ben Mechayiv this guy? Armalei, I need the pomadisa make its kaitzelahu of lishmorhu. That when it comes to poor people, there's a set amount that's given to each of these aniyim, and therefore he's considered like a shomer. So when it comes, as we saw in Rashi, a normal ani can't claim this because who says that I had to give it to this ani? I could have given to another poor person. However, when it came to the people of Pumadisa, there was set amounts of money that were going to be given to each of these poor people. So it's ki'ilu like he was a shomer for those in Niyim until it was actually given over that exact amount. And therefore, that's the reason why Rav Yosef made an exception and said, actually, in this situation, you would, in fact, be chayiv. So let's see if we have another question. Okay, question TB22. Question TB22. Kares ksusi shavas kadi chayiv be'esa oifen mari masnisen. Why would you be chayiv in the case of rending, saying rend my garment? So I'm not sure if this is what he was looking for. So harbe pamim shahalav kehain vehin kalav. Im omer blushin sarcasm. I didn't even want to try. Al im omer lo ato loy chayiv aval mikol makom hu chayiv shehu omer blushin sarcasm or inflection, some type of inflection or something like that. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what he's saying. So sometimes you're chayiv. So lishvos kadi you're chayiv. Karis ksusi shavas kadi chayiv. That's either that's what they're looking for, or possibly what we just saw, where it's lishmor v'lul abe v'lul karoa. However, you can still be chayiv if it was given b'tyrus shmira. So it's a good question what exactly they were looking for over here. So it could possibly be an identical question to question 9. Alternatively, it could be there was Asliyadi Bataris, it was Bataris Shmira. So that's perhaps what it means. Hadi Asliyadi Bataris Shmira, Hadi Asliyadi Bataris Kriya. So it could be one of those two possibilities. I don't have the correct answer. I don't have an answer sheet to see what they were looking for. We now continue with the 9th parak, Goizel Kama, Goizel Eitzim, as we continue on Sadi Gimel Mebeis. And Goizel Eitzim, person stole wood, V'asin Kalim. So this has to do with doing a Shini Maisa. A Shini Maisa, generally speaking, is a kinyan. If, let's say, for that matter, you stole tzemer, wool, Yasim Begadim, and you made a sweater out of it. Mishalom Kishasik Zela. So the din is, you pay at the time that it was stolen. Says Rashi, Demei Eitzim, you pay for the value either of the wood, of the tzemer, or the wool. Since you did a shini maisa, therefore, you don't have to actually give back the sweater or the kli, but instead the din is you have to just pay kishasik zela. Gozel paro muberes v'yolda. Let's say you stole a cow which was pregnant and then it gave birth. A rachel, let's say you stole a sheep. Te'una, which was filled with wool. V'gazaza, and then you shorn the wool. So Mashalom demei para ha'omedes leile, demei bracha ha'omedes gazes. Makes sense. We look again at the time you stole it. You have to pay for a cow which was about to give birth. You have to pay for a sheep that was about to have their wool taken. Gazel para, let's say you stole a cow, v'nis abra etzlo, but it was not pregnant, but after you stole it, the cow became pregnant by the ganav, or v'yolden, gave birth. Rachel, you stole a sheep, v'nit ana etzloi, and it started growing wool only by the ganav, because his son he shore the wool. So masham kishasek zela. So the din is, again, you only have to pay back kishasek zela, a cow which was not pregnant, or a sheep which did not have all this wool on it, which is zakal. The general rule, kol hagazlan misham kishasek zela. You pay kishasek zela, as we're talking about being kind of machine and mice, which apparently everyone holds like. We'll see if that's true. Says the Gemara, Amri eitzim yosim kalim in shipan lo. If you had wood and you now make it into a cup, so it's completely different. It's a shini maisa. That's a shini maisa. What if shipan? What if you took the wood and you smoothed it out? So you did some of the shearings. It's now a nice smooth piece of wood, but it's still wood. Apparently, that's not enough. Or let's say tzemer v'yasim begadim in. You made it into a sweater. However, libnan lo. If let's say all you did is whiten it by putting some dyes into the wool, maybe that's also not enough to say that it's a kinyan of shini maisa, and maybe you don't pay shasak zela. Or minhi, for the Gemara, it says gozel eitzim v'shipon. Exactly our case. You stole wood and you smoothed it out. Avanim v'sittan, or you stole stones and you shaved them. You smooth out the stones. Semer v'libnon, or you have wool and again you whitened it. So those are the first and third cases. What we're going to be focusing on. Pishtan, you have flax, v'nikahu, and you cleansed it. So misham kishasek zela, we still it's kishasek zela. L'chara, we see that there's still a kinyan and a shini maisa even in these cases. Amrabaye tanadidan katani shinu derabanan dahadra the koshkin shinu deraisa. So our Tana mentioned a shini derabanan that could always go back. You could always go back to its original source, and certainly a shini deraisa, where it cannot change. So eitzim, the asim kalim, when we have wood and you make it into a kli, it's be'eitzim mishupim. It means that it was wood that was already smoothed out. You stole already smoothed out wood, and therefore, umay ninhu nitzarim, you stole boards, so they're all nice and smooth. Deshinui dehad lebriyasahu. If, let's say, you wish, you could have changed it to iboy mishalef lahu. Because if you want, you could always have it retract to its original status. So it may not necessarily be making it into a cup, but apparently shaving it off is something you can't go back to its original source. But if it was already shaven off, and all you did was you took this piece of wood and this piece of wood, and let's say you glued a few pieces of it together, but they're the same pieces of wood. Well, all of a sudden now it looks like a chair. Technically, you can just break those pieces off, and they're the exact same thing. Semer v'yashin begadim, when you have wool and you made it into like a sweater, is betsemer tavoi. It was already spun wool. It was already, everything was ready to go. Deshinui dehadol lebriyasahu. It's a shinu which can go back to its original status. Diboy sasale, because you can just undo that woven thread. If you have a sweater, you can just make it not into a sweater, and now it's the exact same wool because it was already spun. V'choshki and shinu deraisa, and certainly shinu deraisa. So our Mishnah, it's hard to imagine this, but this is what our Mishnah is talking about. Our Mishnah is talking about that even a shinu derabanan, which can go back to its original status, is still considered to be a shinui, to the extent that Ganav would help pay with shasik zela, even though it's something which could somehow go back to its original way as it was stolen. However, the Brisa only wants to mention the shini deraisas that cannot go back, a shini derabbanan not. So that's the distinction between our Mishnah and the Brisa. Ravashi Aimer Tandidida Nami Shinu Deraisa Katani. Actually, our Mishnah is also only mentioning a Shinu Deraisa, which cannot go back. How can it not go back? We just said it could. Eitzim Yosim Kalim. When you made it into a kli, it's buchani. Dainu shipan. So it's like you made it into a pestle, says Rashi. Lichtaish, to grind, like pharmacists do. Dainu shipan, the leka hakika. So there's no way to be able to have it revert back to its original status. Sem Rav Yosef Begadim is referring to namte, when you made it in felt. And dahainu shinui deloy hadar, says Rashi, ein hat semer chayzer od lebriyaso. You can't have it go back. Lios kol nima v'nima v'ni atzma, to be able to make each little strand to stand by itself. Okay. So again, the question is, we're now introduced that a shini which is chayzer lebriyaso is a shini d'Rabbanan, but it's not midaraisa. And the question is our Mishnah talking about a case of it being a d'Rabbanan or a d'Oraisa? The libun mihavi shinui, but we're saying certainly libun, taking wool and whiting in it, it's not only is it a shinui d'Rabbanan, it's even a shinui d'Oraisa. So therefore, it certainly is a good shinui. But is that true? Raminhi lo hispik litna loy ad shitzavu potter. So this is quoted many times. Let's say you stole something, you didn't have enough time until it was already dyed. So the din is your potter. What is this potter from what? So Rashi says, L'reishis hagez, l'kayhin at shitzavu. So you have an obligation to give your first shearings to a kohen. However, if let's say it was dyed before Reishis hagez was given, you're potter. Why? The kind of machinery, Rashi says, because since you dyed it before, now you own it. The domim nami lo mishalim, the lav gezel gomerhu. It's not gezel gomer, do matul yade. Since it never reached the hands of the kayin, it's not gezel gomer, so you don't even have to give him the value of the wool. But that's not the key. The key is the next line of the Gemara. Liv noivoit sabachayev. If you only whitened it, not that you dyed it, but you whitened it, but you didn't dye it, so it says you're chayev. The question is, why are you chayev? Must be because whitening it, libun, is not considered to be a shinui. So how could you tell me it's a shinui? We see it's not a shinui because you're still chayev and reishis hagez. So I'm Rabbi Lukash, Harav Shimon Harabanan. It's actually a machlokas. Desanya. Gazai, you shear it. Tavoi, argue, you weave it up and you sew it up. Ein mitzdaref. Ein mitzdaref. It's not mitzdaref, says Rashi. Ditnan b'shchitas chulin, chamish v'chelois goizezois, kol achas manu pras. Five sheep which are sheared altogether can be mitzdaref to a is not mitzdaref, or it says over chayavos bereishis agais. So when it comes to a bunch of different animals, it could be the questions, can they combine together to a manu pras, which is the amount of shearings in order to be chayav for reishis agais. Reishis agais mahu hagais is rachel achash gaza nice min hagizel kayin lafima shiyirtze ulavachet he nesina chashuva. It has to be a nesina chashuva. It has to be something of value. The time that im gazas achas, if you only sheared one, v'tzava or v'tava v'tzava v'chein shniya v'chein shlishis ein mitzdarfos l'manu pras l'schayim de kinyan b'shinoi. So in that situation, you don't give it over, and it's not mitzdarf, because the din is, it is kind of b'shinoi. So we see clearly that there is this notion that when it comes to doing like shearing and all these different, and also the sewing, that's already like a kinyan each one, so they're not mitzdarf. So if you just shear them, they're all mitzdarf, and it's considered to be a nesina cheshuva of a monopras. However, not if you also already wove it and you spun it and all this stuff. Okay. So that's the difference. However, livnai, what if all you did was whiten the wool? So Shimon Omer ein mitzdarf. He also said it's not mitzdarf. Why is it not mitzdarf? Because you're kind of b'shinoi. So we see according to Shimon, it is kind of b'cham arim mitzdarf. So it's a machlokas. Rabbi Omer haba Rav Shimon. Really, it's both. It's like Rav Shimon. If it's like Rav Shimon says that it is mitzdarf. It's not mitzdarf, which means that libun is a kinyan. It is a shinoi. V'lo kasha ha de naftse nefutzi ha de tsarke saruki. It depends. One is that if you disentangled it by hand, and the other one is through combing it. So this whitening is a shinui. If you were engaged in combing it, says Rashi, b'masrek, that's considered to be more of the processing of the wool, to the point that together with the whitening, then you're going to be it's going to be a shinui. Mashenkin, if you just did it by hand, that's not enough. Rabbi Chia b'Rav and Omer ha de chavre chavure ha de kavre kavruye. One is where you just simply whitened it, and the other one is that you added sulfur. Says Rashi, begafris lis labin yafa. So if all you did was whitening it, that's not enough. However, if you added sulfur, that will be an added cleansing process, and therefore in that situation you'll be chayiv. Not chayiv, but it'll be a shinui. Okay. So hashta, so had the chavri chavuri. Hashta, yeshomer tseva, Rav Shimon lo have a shinui. Now that it's possible, we're saying that dyeing, according to Rav Shimon, is not a shinui. Libun have a shinui. That what? On the other hand, libun is a shinui, which is the reason why he says in mitzdaref. The sanya goes as rishon tzava. Let's say you're dyeing you're shearing the wool off of each one separately, and you dye it. Rishon, you do one at a time, the tavoi, and you're spinning the wool. Rishon v'argo, you're doing each one at a time, and you're sewing. Ein mitzdaref. Why not? Since there was a shinui before you move to the next animal, so therefore they're not mitzdaref. Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishum Rav Shimon Saba mitzdaref. When it comes to tzavai, it is mitzdaref because it's not a shinui. This is kind of interesting. That means, according to Rav Shimon, he's saying tzavai, when it comes to dyeing, it's not mitzdaref. Again, when it comes to tzavo, it is mitzdaref because it's not a shinui. However, when it comes to libun, he says the opposite. He says that libun is not mitzaref because it is a shinoi. So Rabbi Lokasha, Harabana libra Rav Shimon, Rav Shimon ben Yehuda libra Rav Shimon. Okay. Rabba Oylam lo pligi. Really, there's no argument. Rabbana lo pligi Rabbana lehed Rav Shimon ben Yehuda. The Shanit Seva, dying is different. However, Yachol Havir al Yidet Safain. Because al Yidet Safain, you can put some type of detergent to remove it. So therefore, when it comes to tseva, dye, it's easy to be removed. And therefore, that's the reason why tseva is mitzaref. That's the reason why tsavai, dyeing, is not a shinoi, because it could easily be removed with detergent. So why did he say before that dyeing it does something? That's bekol ilon dula avar. That you use kol ilon, which Rashi says is daimel l'tchelas, it cannot be removed. You cannot use a detergent to remove it. So the question is, does dye create a shinoi? So it's all totally if that dye can be easily removed with a special detergent. If it can be removed, then it's not a shinoi because it could easily be taken out. However, if it's a shinoi in which cannot be removed because it's using kol ilon, then in that situation you would, in fact, it would be a shinoi. Okay, we're gonna stop here because this is just going to continue. So we'll stop here. See if there's any more questions. Question TA 21. Ha'im tseva choshev shinoi. Is tseva considered to be a shinoi, which is what we were just doing. So it's totally on what kind of tseva. So this is how he answers it. This is TA 21. Stam tseva lehavi shinoi. Hav yachal hamir alidei tzafoin. You can easily just remove it with detergent. The kol ilan havi shinoi delo avar. So this is how you understand it. If you hold that a shinoi chayzer is not a shinoi, if that's what you hold, a shinoi chayzer is lo havi shinoi, so then tseva, if it's tseva which can be removed, that's a shinoi chayzer. But if it cannot be removed, then it is a shinoi. It's very simple. Even if you don't understand the Gemara, all you do is see the question. You have to understand the logic of what the question is saying. It's saying that when it comes to a shinoi which can go back, it's not a shinoi. So when does dye constitute as a shinoi? If you cannot remove the dye, which is referring to again, if we have this kol ilon, the doli avar. So if that's the type of dye that we're using, then that would be a shinoi. However, if it's something in which seva, regular seva, since it could be removed alidei tzafoin, so it's not a shinoi. Okay. Let's see. Rabbi Giver's questions. Matai mutter lavakesh din min hashamayim al chavero shaharolai. When there's no base din on earth. Sarah had a yeshiva, so she shouldn't do it. Ayin Tosfos, as we saw. Ayin Tosfos, I wrote. Mema mevia hagmar raya to oil mehe adam min ha nirdofim v'loy min haroidfin. The dove and pigeon are the two most pursued, and these birds are the ones on the Mizbeach. Okay. Katani b'mishnah b'ha'oimer sama es einai almanas liftor the chayiv. It says that you're still chayiv even though the person said blind my eye. So first of all, a person is makbid on his rosh hashanah. Second, because of pagam mishpacha. And third, sometimes when he says hain, you're pater, really he means lab, that you're chayiv. A lot of questions here. Im pasha b'shmirasam. If it was to the niyam, why should it be chayiv? So, like in Pumbedisa and Bavel, the niyam got to set him out, so it's like a shomer and a chayiv. Next questions. Katani b'Mishnah. Hagoizel eitzav yasem kelim. So our Mishnah said you're paid kashasek zela. Umashma da shipan. If you smooth out the wood, enu kaina b'shinoi. Aval b'braisa isa de'af b'shipan misham kashasek zela. So our Mishnah says ashini d'Rabbanan, since it can go back to the original status. But kavachimer shipan is kaina, and is deraisa since it cannot go back. Or really, our Mishnah is also deraisa, since it's speaking about felt cloth, which won't go back, but also shipon is equally as good. My time with Elizabeth Shimon the Kaimer Hageisel Tsa Shalchitin Adkan.